Hello friends, my name is Doug. Welcome to Third Style Garage. This is a channel about the restoration of fun old classic cars. We've got a 66 Mustang convertible right here. That's my project. Friend of mine is working on with me once a week a 66 Beetle convertible. And this channel is about learning that if you haven't done this before, that's all right. The biggest thing you need is a willingness to try. Be a little determined, and your average Joe Schmo can do work like this as well. Also, the channel is about some shop improvements. This is the third stall of my garage. Stalls 1 and 2 are over there, and I also am working on building the shop myself. Today, I am working on installing a hoist, and I'm going to show you why. Today, the shop improvement I'm working on is figuring out a way to lift stuff. When you're working on a car, sometimes you've got an axle. There's the rear, pointing's hard. There's the rear axle out of my Mustang. Or you might have an engine right back there. Underneath that towel is the engine out of the Beetle. There's the 289 that's gonna go in my Mustang. Who knows what you're gonna lift. Soon, hopefully we'll be taking the body off of the pan on the Beetle. We'll need to lift that off as well. So I wanna come up with a way to do that. For a while I was watching Facebook Marketplace for a engine hoist cherry picker, little hydraulic lift, folds up, stores in a corner. Those are really nice. They work well, they're movable, which is great. Would like to get one someday. Don't have one yet. But also having, a gantry crane, or a hoist in your shop is just really sweet as well, especially if it's electric. You just push a button and it goes up and down. That would be awesome. So I've really been torn as to what I want to do. Watching Marketplace, you see different things come up for sale different times. Stay tuned. I'm going to show you what I found and what I'm going to build. Welcome back. So on Facebook Marketplace, I found this aluminum I-beam. It is 14 foot long. It is about 4.5 inches tall by about 2.5 inches wide. Aluminum, nice and straight, pretty strong. And I want to attach that to my ceiling. So I'm gonna run that somewhere right about there from one side of the shop to the other side of the shop. And then I'm gonna build a little trolley to go across it, hopefully get a chain fall and someday an electric hoist to go up there. That's the plan. How do I attach it? That is the question. Above the metal ceiling in my shop are these TGI joists. And they are about, I think, 14 inches tall. They've got the 1.5 inch 2x running across the bottom. And, I figure, I don't know what the rating is on each one of these, but I know it's pretty stinking high. And if I were standing upstairs, I'm 200 pounds. You can fit several of me easily on a joist. Each one has the capacity for a significant amount of weight. And so originally I was planning on taking the I-beam and running an attachment from the I-beam up the ceiling through the insulation and then have it hook onto the top of the I-beam. And if I did one hook on each I-beam, then that would spread the load out across all of the I-beams. That was my original plan. So building a bracket, I was envisioning a steel I-beam. So I was gonna weld maybe a 2 inch by 1/8 inch plate that goes up across the top, goes onto the top of the TGI joist and then screws in. And then I've got boards up atop, so I'd have to create spacer or like a router out the bottom to make room for that bracket. or router the top of the joist to make room for the bracket, and that was enough work and messing around that it just didn't seem worth it. But then I started thinking about it more, and I'm like, if there's just a way to attach right to the bottom of these joists, and do I come up with brackets on each side of the joist to grab onto him right there? And then I started thinking, you know, that might work some, trying to figure out whether it's stronger to be attached to the bottom or the top. And I started realizing these joists are rated for so much load that really a couple 100 pounds is negligible in a way to a joist. Then I was thinking about screws, particularly lag screws or GRK screws, and how much force it takes to pull these things out of wood. So I bought a box. These are GRK structural screws, 1/4 inch diameter by 1.5 inches long. Picked them up at Menards. Box of 50 of them was about $10, $10-12. And a little bit of web searches, Google searches, and I could not find the pull-out strength of these, probably because it depends on what wood you're putting them into and how you put them in, but most small screws, deck screws, are rated anywhere between 100 and 200 pounds of pull-out strength. And I started thinking, well, if I put 2 of these, one on each side of the flange on the joist, into the bottom of one on each side of the I-beam, put 2 of these into each joist, let's just say it's 100 pounds per screw. I've got 2 screws, that's 200 pounds. I've got 14 feet of joist, that's about 9, I'm pushing about a ton of weight that these little screws could hold, assuming it's all spread out. Now, it's not going to be spread because in theory the I-beam will flex, but then again, all of the joists are going to flex too, so it's going to spread out the load. So if here's my 14-foot I-beam, the weight is in the middle, it starts pulling down that beam, which is then going to spread the load out to the rest of them. That's all assuming that each screw holds at least 50 to 100 pounds, which leads me to my next step. After buying said box of screws, I took one, screwed it to the ceiling, very unofficially, and just put a washer on the bottom of the screw, put my ratchet strap on it, which is kind of a bit of a worst case scenario because it's going to have a bit of a side load on it, but you know, I'm not a svelte 180 pounds, but this doesn't even budge at 200 pounds. If I bounce a little bit, I'm a little more worried about my ratchet strap than I am the screw. So I feel good about that. So I think I'm gonna put 2 screws per joist all the way across the I-beam and consider that pretty strong. So the I-beam that I bought came with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 braces or brackets on there with 9/16 bolts. So it also came with a coat of paint. For a second I thought maybe this was steel and it was painted to look like aluminum, and then I realized you can kind of see that it's extruded, and I can pick it up easily with 2 hands, which means there's no way it's steel. So I'm going to take the feet bracket off and then clean it up. Not only is there some mud on it, but this is the surface where my trolley is going to ride, so I want to clean that up and smooth it off as well. So that's next. They all came out well, except for the last one of each of the last three. There's a carriage bolt that was used and the head just started spinning on the other side. So I got to figure out how to clamp those on and I don't know, clamp something on it to get it to keep it from spinning so I can get the nut off. Vice grip for the win. Two more. And numbers 2 and 3. When you get the nuts off with the impact wrench, be careful because they get hot. All right, a friend of mine taught me once, particularly when it's coming to engine work, but I usually just indulge my OCD side of me. Most of the time when I'm doing projects, that cleanliness is next to godliness when it comes to engine building. So in my shop, it's a mess right now because we're grinding a lot of paint, but before I put this thing up, I do want to get it nice and clean. I love the look of bare metal, bare aluminum, so I'm going to go through and clean that next. If you want to see videos of me grinding things clean, watch the one in the 66 Beetle because we spent hours grinding paint off of that thing and I tried to condense that into one video. So I'm gonna do that off camera and then we'll jump back on once the beam is cleaned up and ready to go. So I took the dimensions of my joists from up there, transferred them down to my beam so I know where the joists will fall. Some of them line up with the holes from the previous mounting, although those holes are larger than the GDK screws I'm going to use. But I don't want to drill new holes, so what I will do is just put a good thick washer underneath there to spread the load out so that the head of the screw doesn't pull through. I also put my ceiling back together and then realized I didn't have a reference point for where the beam goes left to right. So you can see right there, I pulled the ceiling, metal ceiling back down and put two little Sharpie marks, black dots on the ceiling so I know how to center the the beam left to right. So next I'm gonna drill holes in here and then get ready to mount it up. And the beam is up. Surprisingly, kind of blends into the ceiling a little more than I thought. I'm glad it doesn't use up any more head space than that because I don't have tall ceilings. I did try to get it with the length I had. It was 14 foot 2, or it is 14 foot 2 inches. I wanted to get to the middle of this bay so I could pick an engine out of a car here, but also then wanted to go as far to the right as I could so that I could swing the chain fall or hoist off to the side so I don't have it in my way. So hopefully that'll be able to hang down kind of right, sorry, there it is, right here, and tuck it next to the toolbox there and be out of the walkway. That's the plan. Time to build the trolley next. Good morning. It's the next day. The I-beam is up on the ceiling. Next, I'm going to work on building a trolley for this. What I did was I took a piece of 1/8 inch thick steel, a large plate that I had. Here's the remaining chunk of it. It was a piece of 12 by 12. I cut it on my abrasive cut off wheel, my chop saw, into 2 pieces that are 4 inch by 6 inches long. Then clamp them together like such, put them in my small little drill press, drilled 3 holes that unfortunately they need to be 1/2 inch, but they're not. They're 31/64 because, being honest, I lost my 1/2 inch drill bit. So then I did what you're never supposed to do. I put it in the vise and did this kind of thing to slowly use the flutes on the side of the drill press, the drill bit, to drill it out farther. So my plan is to take these 2 plates and have them sit like this, and each one will have a bearing with a small step on the side that will go through the hole. So something like this, and then I got 1/2 inch bolts, just regular low-grade bolts with, I did go spring for the locking nuts, the anti-vibration. They have a little nylon insert in them so that I don't need to worry about it vibrating loose over time. I'll post in the video here what bearings these were. I bought them off Amazon. I think they were like 12 bucks or 14 bucks for 10 of them. They were incredibly cheap. I think they're made for wheelbarrows and things, but they're not going to be taking tons of load. So these will sit like that, and then the main bolt will go through the middle here. And then I'm going to take a piece of 1x1 tubing and cut this to the right length for the middle, and I have a higher grade bolt that will go through that and clamp it together. So I'm going to cut this to length and tighten all this stuff up. I'll show you what it looks like. So here's my I-beam on the ceiling. Now my trolley needs to span around this, and the wheels will roll on this surface here and this surface there. So the width of my trolley needs to be the width of the bottom of the I-beam, plus then whatever gap I want on each side for those side plates to clear. So I'm going to measure this. Now I'm using a dial caliper. So mine is 2.490, 2490. These 2 prongs that stick up here are the width of my I-beam. That's the 2490 right there, you can see on the dial. Now looking at, looking at this pointer right here, I need a third hand. My bearing has a little lip right there. And I kind of planned on using that lip to keep the trolley centered on the beam. Now, when you're looking at your computer screen, it's hard to get a sense of scale. I thought this lip was going to be much taller. So I don't know if that's going to work to keep the trolley centered. But I do want my I-beam to cover this part of the bearing here, but not cover this part. So I need 2.490 plus on each side. I want another about that, which is another 140 thousandths. So 140 thousandths plus the 2,490 and another 140 thousandths on the other side. And that'll give me my dimension for this piece. So I'm going to use my abrasive cutoff saw or chop saw to cut this tubing off. I know I used a caliper to measure it, to get my measurements as accurately as possible. I don't believe this needs to be that precise. I'm just using a scale or ruler to get what ended up being pretty much 1.25 inches. And that's less than the approximate 4 inches that we measured earlier. And that's because I'm splitting. Here's my first one. I'm going to split that, and I'm going to put a hook in the middle between those two pieces to hang my hoist from. So that's why it's a shorter piece. I'm going to put it in here, and then I will cut real slowly and gently so that it cuts as straight as possible. So let's go ahead and cut this. All right, let's get them cleaned up. I'm using an older flat disc, which isn't too aggressive, just to clean up the edges. I want to keep it nice and square with flat edges so that it will sit flat in my trolley. Probably should have put that in a vise instead of holding that with my hands. It's probably why I end up making so many sacrifices to the gods of knuckles. One nice little piece. That one's not quite cool yet. I'll do that one next. This is the hook I'm thinking of putting in between the two. So I'll have a piece of tubing and a hook and another piece of tubing. We'll see if this works. So here's what I'm thinking. It's just sitting in the vise now. Here's my 2 spacers and the hook I want to put. And I was planning on welding this solid. The problem is my hook, which is forged, isn't perfectly parallel. It's a little skinnier at the top than it is in the bottom. The way it's sitting now, I don't know if you'd call this the top of the hook, but it's thicker right here than it is up here, which caused the whole trolley to kind of collapse in at the top. So I've been dinking around for the last 15 minutes. I put a couple pieces of paper shims in here on each side, and then took my dial calipers and measured at the top here relative to the bottom down here to make sure that these were parallel. So I think I've got it pretty close to where I want it. I'm gonna weld that in, spot weld on each side before my shims burn up. And you know, I'll always be able to come in and put a washer or shims on the side, or grind an angle on the end of this piece of 1x1 tubing if I need to adjust the trolley a bit. So I'm gonna work on welding this next, and then I think we'll be able to test it. I am a couple steps from being done. One is I'm going to cut this on an angle there and there, radius the tops. I think it will just look a little less homemade that way. Second thing I did was put a bolt on the end, and there's one way down the other end you can't see, just to prevent the trolley from rolling off the end. And then I'm gonna paint it. I will just paint it black, and we'll have it be black and silver. So I'm gonna take it back apart now, cut these off, paint it, and I'll show you the final product. I think that looks better. That'll look a little less homemade, a little more professional. And friends, here's the final finished version of the trolley. Rolls back and forth nicely, painted it, hook is welded in. The one modification I made is sometimes the plate, if there's a side load on it, this plate would slide against the I-beam. So I wanted a slippery wear surface. So you can see that purplish layer right there is a piece of plastic, like a giant plastic washer that I put in. I cut it with a hole saw out of the top of a Rubbermaid tub. So it's fairly strong. It's not gonna get a lot of wear. Squeezed between the bearing and the side plate so it doesn't turn. But if there's a side load like that, it still slides quietly without grating metal on metal. But I'm happy with it, and it rolls real smoothly with a load on it. So that wraps up this project. If you're curious, you want a teaser as to what's coming next. Rebuilding a budget 1-ton chain fall. So that'll be the next video. Thanks for being part of Third Stall Garage and following along with this project. Please consider hitting the subscribe button. I would love a comment below if there's anything I can help you about. This whole project cost me about $100 about 150 bucks for the I-beam, the trolley bearings. Most of the rest of it was scrap that I had laying around. And as far as the rating of this hoist in the trolley, I really don't know how to calculate that. The I-beam, I think, will take a ton of weight. I have maybe, I think there's 22 screws holding it into the joist. If each screw holds about 200 pounds, that's like 4,000 pounds. I'm never gonna hang that much weight from it. The joist and the ceiling should handle plenty of weight, so I really have no concerns about the structural strength of it. So it's just comfortable knowing that I think it's going to be real strong. I hope you're having fun. I hope you've learned a little bit from this project. If there's anything I can help out with, post a comment below. Have a great day. Thanks for subscribing. Talk to you later. Be kind to one another.